Hello and welcome to episode 204 of Thrive by Additive-Free Lifestyle. We are Tracy and Jo. We're two sisters who are very passionate about asking questions and seeking information that make us curious. Actually, something like that happened in this podcast show coming up. Thrive is a podcast show that will help you lower your toxic load. It will guide you through various stages of life and give you permission to ask questions and seek advice on topics that you may not yet understand. Today, we talk to Terese and far out. Like, she was rock bottom. Her story is not one for us to tell, so we'll let you listen to the episode, but she was a very, very sick lady.
Yeah, she'd been through a lot of trauma, a lot of stress, and we can all relate. We might not have been through the same trauma and stress that Terese had, but we can definitely relate to trauma and stress on various levels in our lives. So please, when you're listening, listen with an open heart, an open mind. Terese's story is amazing. And yeah, it's powerful. It was powerful.
Yeah.
That's probably the word I would use. She was so courageous to get out of where she'd been and deal with what she'd had to deal with in her life.
Absolutely. Now, she's giving 5 books of her new book away to our listeners. So if you're listening to this on the day that this drops, go over to our social media platforms on Facebook and Instagram at Additive-Free Lifestyle. You'll find us both on those handles, I think is what they're called. And you can comment on the thread to win one of her books. So enjoy listening to this episode, and over and out. Hello, Terese. Welcome to our podcast show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you both so much for having me. This is really lovely. I'm so keen to speak to you guys and share with your audience.
Yeah, I think that some things that we'll talk about today will give a lot of people some, I didn't really think of that before, or I've heard of celery juicing, but I didn't really know it could be that good, or I've heard of that, but interesting. So yeah, I think it'd be really good to talk to you today to get a whole bunch of new information that can help people stay curious. So that's what we're all about. Can you share with everyone your name, who you are, and a little bit about yourself?
My name is Terese Millhouse. I am based in Hobart, Australia, and I'm the founder of From Chronic to Cured Wellness. My basis is supporting stressed, tired, career mums, business women dealing with fatigue, Hashimoto's and other autoimmune symptoms to take back control of their health at home, because there's not enough support for them. There's not enough information about what they can do at home, and there are so many things. And I'm passionate about that, having gone through years and years myself, 20 years of Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and 7 of those years were battling chronic fatigue syndrome. And so I'm passionate about sharing everything that I've learned, and I've come out the other side now, fully recovered, managing naturally, and it's possible. This is so possible. And there are so many things that women can do natural, as you ladies would know. It's about sharing that information and bringing about that awareness of how they can reduce their own symptoms, because the go-to at the moment is medicine, and there is no known medical cure for autoimmune. But the thing is that you can recover, you can reverse your symptoms. So that's what I'm here. It's what I'm all about. And I also want them to not do it alone. They don't have to. So part of what I'm passionate about is empowering these women, guiding them, supporting them to become their own superheroes, basically.
And I completely agree, Trace, here. And as someone with an underactive thyroid, it's so important to understand how it all works. So I know when I was first diagnosed with a thyroid problem, I was young. I was like, okay, I didn't understand any of it. I didn't even know what your thyroid did. And there's still elements I'm like, yeah, like it does all this, and everything is so connected. And I think that's where our medical system get a few things wrong, is that they treat this little part, but don't look at this part over here and how it might affect that, or that bit over there and how it might affect that. And if we treated our bodies much more as a whole entity, then we would have a lot better health results out of that. So talk to us a little bit about where it started for you and how like it came about of like this illness and this autoimmune and the chronic fatigue.
A bit similar to you. I was also only in my late teens when I realized I had a thyroid issue. I was really tired all the time, a fluctuating weight, and they said I was like had antibodies, and I was quite like, oh my God, and I had to take a medication, and I was like, I don't want to take a medication. It all just seemed like too much. I was young and overwhelmed, and it was a big deal for me back then to take something that I was told I'd have to be on for the rest of my life. And so I just worked my way through that. I did that. I started to take a thyroxine medication. And this hindsight's a wonderful thing, ladies, but I struggled with an eating disorder through my teens. And I now know that would have contributed to triggering the issues that I had in my thyroid. I didn't know that until 20 years down the track, since I've been on my own holistic recovery path. Then I managed it pretty well all throughout my 20s. I met my beautiful husband, Matt, got married, had our daughter, Ellie, and then a pretty crazy and unbelievable thing happened where Matt, who's now unfortunately my late husband, he was diagnosed with young onset dementia back in 2013, and that was actually triggered by a silent traumatic brain injury that he incurred when he was in Iraq on his first tour in 2004, and he was in the vicinity of a car bomb explosion. So he was momentarily knocked unconscious, but at the time he didn't show any signs of issues until 9 years later, when he started to show signs of degenerative brain issues. So he was a lot of forgetfulness, mood swings, falling over, speech issues. We actually thought he had a stroke at the time. And it was a huge strain on our marriage, this weird, incredible thing that he was going through, as well as PTSD. And we didn't know what was going on. Huge strain on our marriage. We actually separated for a bit. I was struggling with depression. My health started to suffer. We finally helped him through a period of treatments and tests to work out what was going on. And I also hit rock bottom myself and ended up at the Reiki clinic for 3 weeks. Pretty much just didn't know what was going on. I couldn't fathom what we were potentially dealing with. And worst case scenario actually came true, where he was diagnosed with young onset dementia, brain degeneration, and it was unstoppable. There was nothing literally we could do. And he was only 33 at the time. And the thing was that his age, even though he was young, fit, nothing else wrong with him, it was actually a negative, because that meant that it would be a rapid decline. It was really bizarre. And so it was within a 2-year period that he slowly declined. And it was through that process of caring for him and watching that slow decline. With each step, it was a grief, it was a loss, watching him lose his independence. This incredible war veteran who got to the point where he couldn't even really understand how to do a $2 scratchy. And it was just unfathomable. And I think that was, I know that's what triggered the chronic fatigue syndrome, that ongoing high-level prolonged stress, the constant grief, until he finally passed very peacefully in 2015. And it was through that next period of time, the next couple of years were really hard and difficult. Ellie was only 5 when Matthew passed away. So I had to slowly work out who I was without Matthew, without being his wife and his carer. And I had to stop working. I was on a disability pension. I couldn't work. So I realized after a while that what I was dealing with and my symptoms and feeling so tired all the time, pretty much bedridden, couldn't even walk Ellie to school 2 minutes down the road in Lindisfarne most of the time. And it just didn't feel normal to me. And I thought, I can't keep living like this. Matthew wouldn't want me to live like this. I had to start living for both him and I. And that's what really kickstarted me into really going deeper of what's going on. My thyroid levels were all over the place during this time. They would go up and I'd have to increase my medication. They'd go down. Nothing was consistent. And in the end, when I had gone through every single test under the sun with my regular GP, she basically just summed up that it was chronic fatigue syndrome, because that was the only thing left. My mother had that for 30 odd years, and she describes it as having a 30-year virus, which is really interesting. When I tell you about potential root causes, it's really, really interesting, that comment. And then we went through these series of changes, series of tests, didn't come back with anything. So she recommended me to a beautiful integrative GP, and that was the turning point, I think, for me, for my recovery, for looking outside the square. So I think that's where a lot of women are not being supported enough, just because GPs they're just about science and medicine, or they might have limiting beliefs around holistic ideas, looking at all levels of self, not just treating symptoms, looking at root causes. And my beautiful integrative GP was amazing. So she actually started to get me on the path of looking at my gut health, which was terrible after having a colonoscopy, because what I was dealing with was the colonoscopy, I did a stool sample, they showed terrible levels, ridiculously high levels of strep and E. coli, and hardly anything of any of the good bacteria that I should have had in my gut. So I probably wasn't even absorbing half of the nutrients that I was eating. So that was one of the first steps towards getting back control of my health and starting to see a few different little improvements, was trying to balance my gut health naturally. And we started off through, actually I went on an antibiotic for a little while to help reduce that overload in my gut, and got rid of gluten initially as well. And I started to see improvements, but it was still really, really difficult, because I've tried every diet under the sun. I've tried low carb, 5-2, which made me very sick. The 5-2, where you limit your calories for 2 days. That was not suited to me at all. I've done Weight Watchers. I've tried just about everything. So it was difficult to find some nutrition and work out what was making me sick and what was contributing and what wasn't. And so that was about 1.5 years of trial and error, really. And it was also around getting my head in the right space, because I was very unwell mentally. I was years of counselling, got myself onto essential oils, meditation, mindfulness. And I think that was getting myself in the right headspace to finally hear the solution that came to me. One of my girlfriends introduced me to the medical medium books, and the concepts that he writes about in the books is about root causes and where your autoimmune symptoms might actually be coming from. And he suggests viruses and things like that. And when I read it and he was suggesting how to help yourself, I thought, oh my gosh, I could reverse these. That hope was amazing. And yes, Jo, sorry.
Well, I was just sitting here thinking, like, there's just something so powerful in being at rock bottom. You don't feel it at the time, but when you're at rock bottom, to then come back up, and that takes time. And I think a lot of us want it overnight, and it's not an overnight process, and it's not a quick fix. And I think that as a society, we're so used to the quick fixes. Like, that's why you go to the GP, right? To get a pill so that you can fix me. Like, what do you mean this is going to take a long time? No. I need to be back to work tomorrow. Like, I need the cold and flu tablet, or I need the whatever, you know, I need the quick fix. And it's just so, like, congratulations is what I want to say, because you were in a really, really, really dark place. And to come out of that, and I know you personally, so to come out of that and see where you are today, I would have no idea what happened yesterday or years ago, because you seem so well today.
Yeah, and that was through a lot of hard work, exactly like you said. And thank you so much for saying that, because
it
is a lot of hard work, but it shouldn't be. I had to do a lot of research. Information just wasn't handed to me, but through a series of steps and things, it eventually all came together. But the reason why it doesn't take overnight is because we do contribute to our levels of health, and these things can be learnt and unlearnt through our habits and behaviors, and that's why it doesn't take overnight. So my lifestyle, unbeknownst to me, was also contributing to my unwellness. I didn't know about the foods and processed foods that I know now. Additives, you girls have been incredible with the wealth of information that you've helped to teach about, especially MSG. Well, MSG is so bad. And all of the additives that are in foods and other products. And it was through you guys, and also the medical medium information starts to touch on that as well. It's like, wow, oh my God, I can't believe I've been eating this or doing this and not realizing that connection, because you're just eating food. It's just food that's in the supermarket. And we don't eat enough whole foods and fruits and veggies. And when you finally get an understanding of how it's all going in your body and how it's interacting with your body, even at the cellular level, and this is, what I'm doing now as a nutritionist, as a wellness coach, I didn't know any of this when I fully recovered. So anyone can do this, and anyone can have this information. They don't need to have a certificate or a degree in anything. And that's what I want women to be empowered by, that there is more to your recovery, and getting to the root cause. That is the key that a lot of women are missing, by going after the root cause. And unfortunately, our medical system is overloaded. They don't have time to sit with us and talk about our health and lifestyle and nutrition and stress levels and everything else that absolutely contributes to symptoms and unwellness. And it's not just the symptoms. Our symptoms are clues. You need to follow those symptom clues to work out what's going on deep down. And that was the turning point. That was the real turning point for me.
I was going to say, like, I've written a few things down as you've been talking, because I was going to say the limiting belief comment that you had before, and I know you're talking around GPs, but even us as people, like, we all have these limiting beliefs, and some of them have been passed down through, our parents, and we've sort of taken on their belief system around holistic medicine or whatever it might be. And so I just would like anyone that is listening, if you do think, if there's any part of your brain that says to you, I actually don't know if I agree with that, and you've got a different opinion, tap right into that and really listen to that deeply. Because as women, the other thing that I believe truly has happened in society is our core intuition that we have as women has been dampened. And I really believe that we've become so dampened to listen to it that we're afraid to speak out about it again. We were burned at the stake years ago, like, for speaking out about stuff. And so I really believe that deep in my bones, that we need to tap right deep into that. And that when you become a mother for the first time, that's the first probably big experience that I've ever had with tapping into that, of like, not sure about that. But you kind of, again, you're afraid to question it, because that doctor, that GP might be saying to you, because of their beliefs, onto you. And so I really, really just want to empower women to really listen to that gut instinct that we have inside ourselves, because it's right there.
It absolutely
is, isn't it?
I agree with all of that.
It's so deep in our core and we forget to listen to it. And it's funny because we tell our little kids and boys and girls, but we tell our little kids, reach for your dreams and go for your goals. And we try and teach them to expand their minds. And then as adults, we're told to stop thinking, and even at school, sometimes you don't sit down and listen. It's like, hang on a minute. Why am I sitting down and listening? Why aren't I allowed to express and talk and communicate? So I'm all for it. The other thing, I love what you said, and it's only just triggered to me as you've said that. So I had glandular fever before I had a thyroid problem.
Yeah.
And you saying that has made me think, hold on a minute, mate, because I know that with autoimmune diseases, there's some trigger there. They don't, genetics, whatever it might be, but there is a trigger that generally happens. And now I'm questioning, is that mine? So I don't know. I don't know how to go back in time and fix that. But so that was really interesting.
Well.
You can link it?
Yeah. Oh, yes, I can.
Okay.
I've got, that's the root cause. Viruses are root causes of autoimmune symptoms.
Big viruses, or just I've had a
Epstein-Barr is the main one, which is glandular fever. It's in 90+% of the world's population, and it's a small percentage, predominantly women, 2-to-1 affects women in autoimmune, that it turns into a chronic symptom autoimmune issue. And it's triggered through another virus like COVID we're seeing now. People are developing long COVID. There's no, it's not a coincidence. It's very real, and COVID is probably shedding more light on this link now. But there is a small percentage where it's probably about 5% of the world's population, but you're still talking about millions of people, that it turns into an autoimmune issue. And it's called autoimmune because they're saying they don't know why our body is attacking itself, or that's what they're saying. But I want to get people to expand their minds. Is our body really, in our complex makeup, is it really attacking itself, or is it just something that is yet to be identified, that the antibodies are coming in to fight for us? And so they're linking it more and more with viruses and Epstein-Barr. I've even, I've done my research, and I've got a few research sightings for you. Even the US Veterans Affairs have put an article out. They've started to see a link with viruses like Epstein-Barr with multiple autoimmune symptoms. And the more I researched that, and it was the medical medium books that got me onto this line of research, that I'm seeing more and more are saying Epstein-Barr is the link to chronic fatigue syndrome, to Crohn's, multiple sclerosis, Hashimoto's. It is the root cause. If you didn't have that root cause, and then it was triggered by another virus, prolonged stress, lifestyle, chemicals, heavy metals, women just having fluctuating hormones, because that is another feeder of viral cells. And that's why twice as many women are affected as men. Mm-hmm. You will notice that so many women have issues, especially with thyroid, after they've had a baby, or they've gone through puberty or menopause or any sort of prolonged stress. And then the thyroid starts to play up. These viruses, they hide away in our system, they hide away in our organs, and they lay dormant. And majority of the time, they stay there. And so it's only a small percentage where it's triggered and they start to multiply and start to cause havoc. So they also emit their own waste matter, neurotoxins. Just like our body has free radicals, mm-hmm. Viruses have waste matter, they're neurotoxins, and they start to get into our nervous system when it's more chronic, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, Lyme disease. All of these are starting to be linked to viruses. So my approach is, and what I help women is to understand and identify that root cause and bring in antiviral, immune boosting nutrition and lifestyle to lower that toxic load. So although there's no known medical cure, there's so many things that they can do to reduce this incredible inflammation. At the moment, their bodies are overloaded with what's called oxidative stress, which is made up of foreign invaders, chemicals, toxins, parasites, even bacteria. It's all overloaded up here. And down here, we don't have enough of what we need. So too much of something and not enough of another. And that's the basis of what you can describe autoimmune or any chronic illness, really. And so what I help my clients with is to reduce this inflammation and any of the triggers that they have control over in their own home. And that is specifically triggering that viral load that interacts with the gut bacteria and strep and E. coli and candida. They all feed off each other and cause a lovely perfect storm of symptoms. And the bloating and the endocrine disrupting symptoms, the weight gain, we think we're going crazy, brain fog, we're going to doctors, they can't tell us what's wrong, our blood levels are showing normal, even though that's not the case. And it's about looking deeper. So even with thyroid issues, you can still have normal, what they say, normal blood levels, but it's not just about that. You need to understand what our body runs on and what our thyroid produces. You know, I don't know if women know this, but the majority of our thyroid produces the T4 hormone, and there's only about roughly 10% of T3 that our thyroid produces, which is the active hormone. That's actually what our body needs to regulate our whole body, our metabolism, all the hormones, everything. The rest of it is actually created, the rest of the T3 that we use is actually created in our liver and kidneys. So if we have a sluggish, overloaded liver from lifestyle factors or stress or whatever's going on, we may not be able to convert that T3 properly. And there's also a mirror image of T3 called reverse T3, which is completely inactive and useless. And if our body's producing more inactive T3 than our active T3, then we're going to start to show signs of a thyroid issue where the blood levels are still showing normal. So not many doctors bother with that information and look into that. And that's, again, just because if they're general practitioners, they don't have the time to look into all of these things. They may not have the belief yet because, you know, a particular person that they follow, that's what they say, then I'm going to do that, or whatever it might be. They're a medical system. Our doctors are amazing, absolutely amazing, but they're overloaded. So, you know, I learned this just from being so lucky to have an integrative GP that's taught me so much that I can then go off and research and I can share this information.
Can you explain what an integrative GP is for those people listening that don't know?
Yes. So wherever you are in the world, it may be integrative, it may be functional, it may be holistic. So they are doctors who aren't just looking for a medical cure. They are looking for a natural alternative solution, ways that help you promote better health and wellness. And they look after your whole level of self. So not just the physical symptom level. They help you address the emotional, mental, and, you know, spiritual or energetic levels of self. That is a integrative functional medicine or holistic medicine doctor. They like to go deeper and look at the root cause, and there's more and more of them. I don't know if you've started listening to the Aging Project as well, but they're bringing on a lot of doctors who have gone on to be integrative doctors themselves to look outside the square because they've had issues that medicine hasn't been able to help them with. And I've had clients who are neurologists and other specialists that have come to me because they haven't been able to find their solution with medicine. So it is only a small portion. Medicine is amazing, and medication, on the right medication, where it is more helping you than not helping you. So you want a medication, and there are brands, they're all over the place. You just have to find the right one. It can be a great wellness tool, but it is not.
Think of it like a puzzle, like,
yeah,
like it's like a puzzle. Like we don't just make a puzzle using one piece. We need multiple pieces to create a puzzle and finish it off. And if you're missing a piece, then, you know, you get angry. Like, you're like, I've got one piece missing. Where'd that piece go? And it's like that. We need to find all the pieces of the puzzle. And I know when I started seeing my doctor, who's probably the same practice, because I'm here in Hobart as well, is my first appointment was 1 hour long, like 1 hour. And every GP I've ever seen in any realm of this thyroid saga that I've been on has been maybe 15 minutes, and you know, you might get 20 because you've pushed them over time. And then they're sort of shuffling you out the door kind of thing. I mean, I have had other good GPs that have listened and you know, and tried, but not like a holistic GP. And yeah, my first appointment was an hour, and the questions he asked me were so in depth, like right back through to my childhood of, have I had this illness? Have I broken bones? Have I done this? Have I done that? That had nothing to do. I'm like, I don't know, why is breaking a bone infecting my thyroid? Like, you know, like kind of thing. And yeah, it's just so amazing if you can find a GP that is willing to work with you as well. And that, I think that's great too. And some GPs are like that, you know, they're still, they might not class themselves as a holistic GP, but they're still willing to work with you. And I remember when I said to him, I use essential oils, and he didn't look at me like I was crazy. Whereas, you know, I if I went into just an everyday regular GP, they'd probably think I was nuts, like, you know, sort of thing. So although the world is changing slightly on that topic as well.
Yeah.
The other thing I wrote down was, you mentioned fruit and veggies. Now I want to go back and circle back to this because a lot of our fruit and veggies, especially in states, now we're in Australia, there are certain areas in Australia that don't have fruit fly. And I like to say that slowly or else I get tongue twisted. And all our fruit that comes into our particular region, our state, is sprayed, is fumigated, regardless of whether it's organic or not. They fumigate it. It's only certified organic that they don't, and there's a process that they go through to ensure that our state doesn't end up with fruit fly. Great, that's, you know, I'm all for that. But it's worth noting for people to understand that our fruit and veggies aren't fruit and veggies like 50, 60, 80, 100 years ago, even 50 years ago. Like, sometimes I look back and I go, 50 years, oh yeah, that's only like the 1980s, you know. I'm like, which actually
not quite, thanks. Hey, I was an 80 baby, 42.
And my brain's like, oh, 1950s, yeah, that's when my parents were born.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
Oh no, it's like my brain doesn't compute the 50 years ago anymore. So 50 years ago, not long off when I was born.
Let's start saying 70, 80 years ago.
I know, we nearly need to say 100 years ago, and that makes us sound really old. But anyway, point of the matter is, our soil is overfarmed, our nutrients aren't there, that whatever we're growing and pulling out of the dirt isn't as nutrient dense as it once used to be. So I wanted to just touch back on that and just kind of explain that as, you know, from your opinion and from your point of view of really quality, like the quality over quantity kind of theory.
Before maybe you get into that, I know that you celery juice every day as well. So maybe you can touch on what Tracy has just asked, but also things that you are doing or have started doing or done that's really helped you get to where you are today.
Yeah, so it is really, really hard. It is really, really hard to find good quality food that can also be within the budget, because it is cost of living as well as going up. So there's a multitude of issues that we're dealing with. I always say, if you can buy organic, do, because that's the best way. You have all the beautiful essential nutrients in an organic food. It hasn't really been affected by any sort of spray at all. So that's the first point of call. Second point, if you can't, don't stress it. I'm good about that too with you girls say that, but I do say that with whole fruits and vegetables. You just get what you can, because we have the means now to clean our vegetables and reduce as much of that residue out of conventional fruits and veggies as possible. But it is also important, and what I also suggest to my clients, because of the fact that we don't have enough nutrients now in our soils, and our body thrives and needs essential nutrients, 9 essential nutrients, to basically function, to have every cell functioning as it should. And so you do need to supplement, and that's okay. But it's also, again, quality over quantity. You don't just supplement with the most popular brand. You do research, because you can have a tablet of, vitamin C or magnesium, and it's filled with fillers, and it's also filled with trigger foods. Sometimes it could be gluten, dairy, soy, corn, canola, eggs. That they are the main ones that I always suggest my clients to start to remove just during recovery, because they are viral food triggers. And they're also fillers in a lot of medications, supplements that we take. So there are some beautiful supplements out there that, preferably in a capsule, powder or liquid form, that I recommend my clients to use. And I personally use what's called Vimergy, Vimergy. They are high quality, organic. Most of them are liquid based, so they're more bioavailable, which just means it's much easier for our body to absorb, pretty much straight from when you put it into your mouth and as it goes down. And if you're looking at removing certain foods, you need to make sure that you're not removing certain nutrients that are in those foods, like dairy. So you need your calcium. Women especially need that calcium, and women with thyroid issues need that calcium, because a dysfunction in our thyroid has a flow-on effect to our body actually absorbing calcium, and so we're more likely to develop osteopenia and go into osteoporosis if we're not getting our daily calcium. So that's also really, really important. So it's about, don't stress it, but organic where possible, because you can make yourself sick worrying about this stuff too. And I don't want that. So I try to just say, start with one thing at a time. If you find organic, do. Otherwise, I show them that natural wash, lemon essential oil, big on that, big on all of the ways that you can reduce your toxins in your home and in your body. And it's actually part of what I teach. The method that I use is my 4-step chronic to cured recovery method. And step 3 is recovery environment. And it did make a big impact in my recovery, about removing all of the barriers that are currently blocking your body from self-healing. It is an incredible mechanism that we have. We already have an immune system. We already have self-healing tools, but they get overloaded and they get blocked, and there's a lot of dysfunction through all of that oxidative stress and life and pollution and everything else that's going on, and even the own stress that we create in our body. So the more that you can remove any of those barriers that you have control over, which also includes reducing your own stress levels. Don't have to tell you, ladies, that women, especially mums, we're constantly running in survival mode. And so that's actually the first step that I help my clients with. Step 1's recovery, mind and body, getting them in the right frame of mind with the right mindset, that open mindset. That can be a bit hard when you've been told so many things. You're never going to recover. There's no point. You just have to take medication. So there's a lot of stuff that they have to start to think outside the square with, but also being in constant fight or flight. That can be just part of our society and putting ourselves last because we're the mum and we're supposed to do all the nurturing and looking after. And so I am all about helping the women that I help, empowering them to say, no, you need to flip it on its head. If you can't function on an empty cup, and you can't do what you need to do for your kids unless you look after yourself first. And so it's a very big thing that self-care is not selfish. And so I get them to prioritize their self-care, which then helps them to help reduce the stress, work on whatever it might be that helps with that, whether it's essential oils or meditation, going for a walk, listening to music. I help them find that thing. I don't tell them they need to go and listen to 4 hours of meditation. I'm not like that. I work with my clients to find out what it is that it relaxes them so that they can start to do that more often and promote that relaxed state and get them out of that constant fight or flight. And it takes time because it's a habit. The body's learnt that habit. And we are creatures of habit. That's why this isn't an overnight fix. We are essentially looking at unlearning so much of what we've learned on a conscious and unconscious level for years and restructuring it and reprogramming our whole body right down to the cellular level to function more balanced way. And that's what I call a recovery lifestyle. And that's what I'm living now. And that's what I want every single woman in the world, not just women struggling with autoimmune, but every woman in the world who can then teach their families as well to live with a recovery lifestyle about self-care, whole foods, having all the tools that they need to essentially look after themselves, where the default isn't going straight to the doctor's office. They have so much more power. And for me, it's knowledge plus understanding equals power and empowerment. You can know the encyclopedia from A to Z and not understand the content. So I don't just have a 15-minute consult with my clients and send them off. I work with them. That's really important to me, that I'm help them to understand what's going on with their body, why they're experiencing this, and then give them that empowerment of what they can actually do. And they can be so amazed at the simplest things like the celery juice, for example. I just did a 7-day Kickstarter with my clients, and it's a simple thing. It's a 1 ingredient thing. And they already started to see improvements just by having that control of doing that for themselves, but just in their gut health and a little bit of their energy and clarity. And I help them with celery juice because for me, it's the number one fighter for viruses, bacteria. It's an antiviral. It's a prebiotic as well, as it helps starve to the overgrown bacteria. So just by having some celery juice first thing in the morning on an empty stomach, it helps to kickstart your digestive system, gives your liver a bit of a mini detox every day. And by doing that every day, they start to see the accumulative effect. So the more tools you're giving the body, the more it can help itself. A simple little thing like celery juice, that if you're not in the right, if you're coming from somewhere that can be a bit closed-minded, and you hear that it might be from this guy who's, medical medium, they say, oh, he's woo-woo, and I don't believe anything that he says or does. Well, I was so sick that I really didn't care. I wanted to know if this worked. And that's my view. I'm very open-minded about everything, and I'm all about anything is possible. And I want to pass that on. So I say to my clients, try it, do a 30-day try. If you don't see improvements, at least you tried, but give it a really good go, and not just drink every now and again, but it's purposeful. It's purposeful. You're doing it for a reason. It's almost like a mindful thing. And it's simple little tools. Looking at your products, looking at your, your low-tox environment, your fragrance, perfumes. Like I just swapped out all of my perfumes. I used to sneeze all the time. And just through that simple process of swapping out my perfumes to just beautiful essential oils I can make myself, made such a huge difference. Huge.
It does, doesn't it? Like lowering our toxic load is beyond, like, I don't understand how anyone could not think that it's going to make a difference, because when our bodies
I don't know what they don't know, Trace, though.
No, I know. But even a doctor,
granted
like,
now.
I guess so, probably.
Yeah.
But even, I just don't understand how the medical system as a whole, like generalized, it's not their first question that they ask someone when they go in. Like we get asked, do we smoke and do we drink? But not, and what chemicals do you use in your home? Like it needs to be in there with that, because it's at that same level.
Absolutely. Would be great.
Wouldn't it be great if that was the third question? How much do you smoke? How much do you drink? And what type of toxins are you exposed to every day in your home? Like,
yeah,
it would make people question a lot more.
I've been to a few things lately, and vaccine has been one of the questions that has been on there. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And it was a medical practice. It was a couple of different, like for my sports injuries that I've got, or body injuries, and different places. And I was like, oh.
In a good way, like
like we can't treat you for a couple of weeks, and like just different. Just I've never seen it on there before, and all of a sudden, and I'm like, okay, that's new. All right, good. I'm happy with that. Like, it's nice that people are getting questioned, not in a negative or positive way, just in a, okay, well, I need to be aware that you've had that so we can treat it if something happened, or whatever it might be, right? It's just, I just thought, okay, that's good.
Well, we know now that the Rona one, like you almost feel like you can't say the words anymore because we were banned from so long from saying them. But we know, like it's the science is out there now that it does cause issues, and it's having long-term effects on people. We know it affects people's hearts. Like none of this is a secret. And if anyone's listening, they're like, oh, God, they're anti-vaxxers. That's not actually the case, because it's right out there. Everyone knows it. Even our parents who's had multiple. And it does need to be spoken about more, though, without that underlying, again, fear of somebody else with their negative opinion or their limiting belief around it. Because this podcast is all about questioning everything. And the more we can question things, the more we will get to root causes, the more we will understand. And we'll learn things as well. Like we will learn things along the way, and we will learn things that we're like, oh, like you've taught me so much today, and thank you for that. But yes, I agree, Jo. I think it's really great because we do know that it causes heart problems, and people are going to need to know that moving forward, like on treatments, if they're going to do treatments on people, they don't, Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you're such a wealth of knowledge. So what type of people do you work with?
At the moment, I'm really passionate about supporting women mainly, because women are so much more affected than men. So a lot of the women are working career mums. They're trying to work dealing with kids and symptoms. So that's my focus, is to support them and just to empower them as much as possible with this information that they're not yet aware of, or they haven't yet had the courage to ask these questions, or they haven't had the awareness. So that's who I work with, basically. And it's such a shame that they come to me almost like when they're at their wit's end and they've tried everything already. So if I can get to them before they've tried everything to get to that point, that's my ultimate goal. So yeah, I'm passionate about that. And I do have a little something for listeners. I've got my book From Chronic to Cured that I recently released in June, which is my personal recovery story. And it's also the holistic method that I use that they can start to implement themselves at home if it resonates. And I've got 5 copies that I want to give away to your listeners, 5 signed copies as well. Which I do have for you ladies as well.
That's so lovely.
So that's there as well. And I do have a little limited time giveaway. I have a beautiful self-care e-journal on the link in my socials at From Chronic to Cured Wellness, and they can download that for free. It's an annual self-care e-journal, so they can prioritize their self-care and put themselves first, but also to recommit to their self-care every month. And it's set up in that way. And it's also got beautiful, inspiring quotes to help keep them self-motivated as well. So really passionate about giving women as much information and all of the tools that they need in a purposeful way, so that they can take back control of their health and finally overcome these exhausting and debilitating symptoms that they've been potentially told that, you know, there's a bit of gaslighting as well happening. I've experienced it myself, but because the doctors can't find anything wrong, they often default to it being a mental health issue. And I want women to know that they are not going crazy. Symptoms can be depression and anxiety, but there is a deeper root cause going on. And if anyone has any questions, anything at all, please reach out. That's what I'm here for. That's what I'm passionate about. And I've recently been acknowledged as a finalist in the Aumompreneur Awards. So I'm working hard, and that finalist nod for the Wellness Services Business of the Year, I feel very humbled by, but I'm also like, you know, yes, because I'm starting to make a difference, and it's starting to show that the work I'm doing is important and worthwhile. So,
well
thank you.
done.
So share your website.
From chronic2cured.com, and Instagram and Facebook is at From Chronic to Cured Wellness.
Chronic to Cured Wellness. All right. We will put all the links in our show notes as well. But thank you so much again. Your story is incredible. And yeah, we wish you all the very best with your book, and all the clients that come to you as well. I know they're going to be in good hands.
What we'll do is when we pop this up on our social media channel to advertise this podcast show, we will run the giveaway on there. I was just trying to think how we're going to run a giveaway for 5. So what we'll do is
on our socials.
We'll pop it on our socials, and we'll run the giveaway over there. And yeah, good luck with Aumompreneur. I don't know if you can see these 2 little medals up here, but that's from the same Aumompreneur event. So congratulations. It's a fun event. And just
thank you so much.
And just well done for just helping people, for being rock bottom to getting yourself out of it. That takes so much work, and I know from personal experience as well. And you're right, people often do get help after they need it, or they need it, but after, they could have got it sooner. And just get the help. I just want to encourage our listeners to just get the help that you need. If you're feeling sluggish, if you're bloated and you just know you're not right, and you're tired and cranky, and maybe your anxiety's through the roof and your digestive system's not happening. It doesn't have to be all of those things, but sometimes it is all of those things, and we just live with it.
It's not normal. It's not just a mum and everything's crazy. That's not normal symptoms. You should be going along pretty well and be able to function and do everything that you need to do, and then go to sleep at night and sleep well, because that's when we need our rest. It's not normal to have ridiculous, terrible menopause, terrible periods, fatigue. You know, we just put up with it, but they are your symptoms. They are the bells ringing in your body to say, come on, let's have a closer look so we can work this out. And please do.
Absolutely. And I think as a society it's common. And so we think, it is normal. No, common doesn't mean it's normal. Yeah. And I say this to my daughters all the time.
Toughen up, you'll get over it. Deal with it.
Toughen up. Yeah.
No.
Common does not mean it's normal, or it should be normal.
Good one.
So yeah, I agree.
All right, well, if you've loved this podcast episode, we would love for you to leave a review, and please go and check out Teresa and all the work that you do. And we'll be back next week for another episode.
Thank you, ladies.